Today, we sat down with former sports columnist for the Wichita Eagle and League 42 founder Bob Lutz. We discussed Wichita's sports history, as well as things going on in the city, what he's doing with League 42, and the current Wichita State team. I had a blast with this one, and I hope you do the same. All right, we're up. Bob, thank you for coming on.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. You know, as Royals fans, it was before our time, but that was a great call at first base in the '85 World Series.
Had to start with that, huh? Yeah, that was certainly a call. Yeah, that was painful because it looked to me like the Cardinals were going to win that game. You can never know for sure. But what kind of balanced it out for me was the fact that the Cardinals didn't show up for Game 7. I was very disappointed in that team for that. So hats off, you got a tainted championship. Congratulations.
I was going to ask because I couldn't remember if that was Game 6 or Game 7, but that would have been really brutal if that was Game 7.
Yeah, that would have been – I would not be here today, probably, if that had been Game 7.
No, on a serious note, I did want to congratulate you on your induction into the Kansas Sports Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that's a big one for me because I've been around Kansas my entire life and developed a real affinity for the history of sports in this state. And to think that I'm alongside people like Wilt Chamberlain and Jim Ryan and is kind of ridiculous on one hand, but I'm very proud of that honor, and it's a little bit surreal.
Oh, you should be proud.
You deserve it.
How does it feel to be alongside those athletes and coaches you've covered for so long?
Well, I got to know a lot of those people. In fact, I was kind of the interviewer at the 2025 induction ceremony in Topeka in August. So everyone who was inducted other than me, I kind of led the discussion on stage with them, and that was a lot of fun. A lot of those athletes I had covered, some I had not. So I got to know a little bit more about them, and I'm hopeful to be invited back to do that again next year.
Who was inducted in your class?
Mark Mangino was one of the big ones, and Larry Brown from the Washington Redskins and played at K-State. And then a whole bunch of others who I don't remember on the spot. Thank you for showing that my age is affecting me.
You began working for the Eagle in 1974, is that correct?
Yeah, I had worked at the Dewbey Daily Reporter as a junior in high school and then again as a senior in high school. And I was eager to try to get to a bigger paper. I'd grown up reading the Eagle after my father was done with it, and I went and I just read it from cover to cover, especially the sports section, and always wanted to work there once I got an interest in journalism and newspapers. So I applied for a job on the phone crew is what they refer to that as. So you just answer the phones and you take box scores, and it's pretty menial work, but you're doing it at Kansas's largest newspaper, and I loved it. And less than a year later, in July of 1975, I was hired full time to cover high school sports as a 20-year-old. That doesn't happen in this day and age. So it was a little bit daunting because I'm thrown right into the fire covering, in my opinion, the best era in the history of the City League. And but I learned on the job. I certainly didn't know everything or even much of anything when I started. But through trial and error and experience and lenient editors and supervisors who brought me along, I learned the craft and did it for a long, long time.
You started in 75?
Full-time at the Eagle, yes. I started, but I'd worked full-time at the small paper in Dewbey as a high school kid.
Right.
The football coach there at the time was a man named Jim Dewbey, who went on to have great success not only at Dewbey, but then at Wichita Southeast, where he had some of the finest football teams and talent in the history of Wichita. Then he went on to join the staff at Kansas State, and he was the guy that was instrumental in me getting a job at the Dewbey Daily Reporter, because he was a gruff guy, and I think he just said hire him, and they did. So yeah, that was where it started.
Yeah, you were thrown right into the fire because you had like Ricky Ross and Antoine and those guys were late 70s or early 80s.
Yeah, the first year I did it was 75, and Southeast had a really, really good football team that year, coached by the aforementioned Jim Dewey. Cape and Mount Carmel, coached by Eddie Kriewell, another real legend. Mm-hmm. And they were going at it, and both programs were at their apex. And so I'm this 20-year-old kid covering those programs. And then we get into it a little later, and in 1976, 77, is when you had the undefeated Heights basketball team with Darnell Valentine, Antoine Carr, and a bunch of others.
What a special group that had to be.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Coached by Lafayette Norwood. All 5 of those players that were in their starting lineup played Division I basketball. And wow. I saw that up close and personal. They finished the season 25-0. Their closest game all year was a 9-point win over South, which at that time, Ricky Ross was a sophomore on that team. And in the state championship game against Kansas City Wyandotte, which is a legendary program, Wichita Heights just tromped them. It was 25-0 before Wyandotte even scored. 58-17 at halftime, and I think the final score was 96-54, so 54 or something like that.
Wow, what a special time to be covering high school sports in the heyday of that city league.
Yeah, we had 5 McDonald's All-Americans in basketball during that very short run, starting with Valentine, and then you had Ricky Ross and Antoine Carr, and then in 1981 you had Aubrey Sherrod and Greg Dreiling. Unheard of. We've had 1 McDonald's All-American since, and that was Perry Ellis.
Did you see similarities at all in the City League when Connor and Perry were coming through like it was back then?
It felt a little bit like that, because here you have Heights winning 4 consecutive state championships. You've got a player at Heights, Perry, who's a 4-time All-City player, certainly one of the most decorated player in the history of Kansas high school basketball. And then Connor at North, even though his teams weren't as good, he was must-see.
He was.
You had to go watch him because you never knew what he was going to do. He was probably even a better shooter. And I say that I'm hesitating because Ricky Ross is without a doubt the best player in the history of the City League. But Connor was probably even a better shooter than Ricky Ross.
Was Ricky Ross before the three-point line?
He was, yeah.
What position? Like was he a really tall guy?
He was a 6'6" guard. He really went anywhere. They did not put any restraints on Ricky Ross at that because they knew he was their meal ticket. So he could score from the outside. He could take it to the basket. He could offensive rebound. He could run the break. He was just a phenomenal talent, and led them to 2 state championships. Just a joy to watch. I was very lucky to be able to cover the City League at such a amazing time in the history of that league.
What were the gymnasiums like and like the crowds?
Very small, not like they are today. That's why they moved some of the big games out of those small gyms. South played probably half of its schedule at Friends University in the Garvey gym because they wanted more people to be able to see those teams. But when they did play at their home courts, the gyms were really small and packed, and you could barely move, and very loud. And that was the case with pretty much every gymnasium in the city. There were some that were better than others. East High had a terrible old gym. Water, you'd sit at the press table on the floor, and above you there were seats, and water would drip down. And they finally obviously replaced that gym, and they've replaced all the gyms in the City League now. And they all have really, really top-notch facilities. But at that time, they were bandboxes.
Yeah, you saying that reminds me of North. Does North have a new gym?
North does have a new gym.
Like, because when Connor was going through when we were in high school, it was the gym that where you sat up above, and it was like
and
a
that
capsule.
gym was 50 times better than East.
Wow.
And North had so much. There was so much history to it. Not that there wasn't at East. There's obviously just as much at East, but it just felt like the North gym held together better.
Yeah, and that school is just neat. It's just, you can look at it and you're like, that looks like it has a lot of history there.
Yeah, for sure.
When I think of athletes from the past, Barry Sanders comes to mind.
Why? What did he do?
How was he so under-recruited? It seems like he was pretty under-recruited. Why do you think that was?
He played at North at a time when I was not covering high school sports, so I didn't get to see a whole lot of Barry. I think he was under-recruited because of his size, and only 5'7". He didn't even play tailback. He was a wingback during his senior year at North.
What, David Jabbar was a tailback?
No, David was earlier. No, nobody's as old as David. Let's just say that. So Barry actually played wingback for Dale Burkholder, and while he put up big numbers, I think 1,400 plus yards rushing, he wasn't heavily recruited. In fact, Wichita State and Oklahoma State were the two main schools. If Wichita State had gotten him, would they still have football today? That's a question to ponder. But Oklahoma State got him, and they paired him with Thurman Thomas. And the rest is history. That team was so much fun to watch when they had those guys. But people missed on Barry Sanders, and I think a lot of it was because it wasn't like it is today, where you could see tape and you could you had all kinds of avenues to recruiting that didn't exist then. So he was a little bit of a secret, but the secret soon got out.
That is an interesting hypothetical about if he goes to WSU, does WSU still have football?
Yeah,
I've never thought of that.
I forget that you kind of forget that WSU did have football back then, and just because it's been gone for so long, and the fact that they had a chance at Barry, that is a good hypothetical.
And I think I think he was a senior in. Well, I want to get this right. I'm not even going to guess, but I know he was a senior at North, close to the time Wichita State dropped football after the 1986 season.
Yeah.
He might have been a senior in 85.
Senior in 85?
Senior.
What a memory, huh?
Yeah.
And I can see what you're thinking. Man, this guy's old, but he can sure remember things.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Jumping back to the basketball real quick, where did Ricky Ross go to college? And what kind of happened?
So Ricky went to KU. He was...
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Big-time recruiting battle. North Carolina, the big schools. But it basically boiled down to North Carolina and Kansas, which, interestingly, was kind of the way it was with Darnell Valentine 2 years earlier. It boiled down to North Carolina and Kansas. Valentine chose KU, so did Ricky. Ricky was a sophomore or a freshman at Kansas the year Darnell was a junior. And they were a good team. And Ricky, I'll never forget this because I just loved Ricky Ross. I know I listened to the first KU game of the season. I think this is right. Is your fact checker just going to check everything I say? Is that how?
If you want him to, he can.
Oh, yeah, we'll put him to work.
So they played a game on the West Coast. I believe it was against Pepperdine. And I believe it was Ricky's first game. If not, it was one of his early games. And he scored 30 in that game. And I'm just elated. And he went on to have a good year, averaged close to 12 points a game as a freshman at KU. But then he left. And I think there's different reasons as to why that happened. Academics is one of the theories. the fact that he and Darnell Valentine could not coexist was another theory. So Ricky
Wow.
went to 2 junior colleges in California and was really good at both of them. He averaged over 30 points a game at Marin Junior College, as I recall, and then was recruited to play for Nolan Richardson at Tulsa. And that's where he spent his last 2 years, being a very, very good player in the Missouri Valley Conference at Tulsa, averaging about 19 points per game in those 2 years. But it didn't work out in the pros for Ricky. For whatever reason, he was as sure of a slam dunk as an NBA player as I've ever seen. But we don't know what goes on in the lives of people that sometimes hinder them. So Ricky didn't play in the NBA, but he continued to play around here as just showing up at gyms and playing them. And people, even into his 40s, people marvel at the talent of Ricky Ross. He's really a legendary figure in my mind.
I agree. Because like when we all learned about the Wichita City League back then, you Darnell Valentine, Antoine Carr, and then when dad or mom says none of them were the best, it was Ricky Ross. And I'm like, man, I've never even heard of Ricky Ross.
Yeah.
Pretty remarkable.
Yeah. The old-time Wichita sports history is just so fascinating. I wanted to move into the 80s, the 88 and 89 Wichita State baseball teams. So the 88 team came up just short, and then the 89 team ended up winning. How was covering those 2 years?
Well, I wasn't covering the Shockers then. I did cover them from 91 to 95, and they went to 3 College World Series in that era, in that time frame, and finished second twice, both to LSU. But I was at the 88 College World Series as kind of a backup guy, writing sidebars and whatever. They just had so much talent flowing through that baseball roster at the time. Gene Stevenson, obviously a remarkable head coach. Brent Chemnitz, a top-flight recruiter and pitching coach. And they got all the best players out of Wichita. They got all the best players out of small-town Kansas. It was a time and a place where you could still find diamonds in the rough that weren't necessarily seen by people who didn't scour the earth to find players. And that's what Wichita State specialized in. They specialized in not only getting the Darren Dreiferts, who everybody wanted, but finding the Pat Mearses out of Salina Sacred Heart, the P.J. Forbes out of Pittsburgh Colgan, smaller places that they had a real pipeline. And for that period of time, 88 through 94, what is that? 88 through 93, that's a 6-season span. They went to the College World Series 5 times. Finished first once and second twice. So you shake your head at that. And you go, wow, that really happened. It did really happen.
Yeah, go to X Stadium, and it's like every single, the whole backdrop is filled with years from the 90s and 2000s success.
And then they made it again in 96, and that's the last time. So now you're talking about 30 years since the Shockers have been to a College World Series, whereas they went 5 times in 6 years and 6 times in 9 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is remarkable. It's remarkable they could put that together all at once so quickly. They just rattled all that off.
They had an amazing run. They worked hard at it. The recruiting was second to none, and then the coaching was outstanding as well.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of guys went to the pros. A lot of guys went to play Major League Baseball.
Yeah, WSU, obviously they were back then. They are always putting guys in the pros. They still are. Even though the baseball program isn't great.
Not to that degree, but yes.
Right.
They still are.
Yeah, they're still putting guys in the pro. Like Alec Baum, he's a shocker. He's a great big leaguer. It's interesting that they haven't been able to put anything together, even though they're still putting guys into the big leagues.
Peyton Tolley, who pitched for the Red Sox, They don't talk about him being at Wichita State, but this is where he started for 2 years before he transferred to TCU.
Right.
But now he's very highly thought of as a Boston Red Sox.
I know. Hopefully they can get it going.
Yeah.
You know, when I think of you, because I'm 28, I think of the 2013.
There are very few 28-year-olds who think of me, so thank you. I appreciate that.
I remember driving to school in the mornings with Mom.
Yep.
You and I don't remember who your other
Bruce Hurdle.
Bruce Hurdle, yeah. Right. Listening to you guys every morning driving to school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did that I did that with him for close to 14 years, and then that show still exists today on KFH. So, yeah.
You were writing for the Eagle and doing that?
I was, and then we did our radio show I did with my son from December of 2015 until last February. So besides all the newspaper work, I've also have almost 25 years in radio.
Wow. And how long were you at the Eagle for?
From 74 to 2017 when I retired. Wow. So close to 42 and a half years.
That's remarkable.
And then you put my 2 years at the Dewbey Daily Reporter, and long time.
Yeah, that's remarkable. But back to what I was saying. When I think of you, I remember the 2013, I go back to 2013 Wichita State Final Four run. How was that for you?
Yeah, you never think you're going to see Wichita State in a Final Four, although they did go in 1965, but that's a different time and place. And I was a huge Shocker fan at that time, so I probably know more about that Final Four run, even as much as I know about the 2013 run. But in 2013, to get to cover that team and be on the road with them and every stop along the way to the Final Four, starting when they beat Gonzaga out in Salt Lake City, a game that nobody gave them a chance to win. And then they go to L.A. and they win a couple games there. They beat Ohio State to get to the Final Four. And then they had Louisville on the ropes in the semifinals, and really should have won that game, but let it slip away. And but still, to be able to cover that Final Four, I think I covered 7 Final Fours in all, but that one had extra special meaning because it was Wichita State, and so many Shocker fans were on the road with us, and to know that you're in the midst of all that was really fun. And it helped that my son, Jeff, who was working at the Eagle as well, was also a part of that, so kind of a family thing too.
Yeah.
That was such a fun run to the Final Four.
It had been a blast getting on the radio after some of those huge wins.
Yeah, we did we did the radio show on the road, and yeah, it was it was a different. It's just hard to believe all that happened, and then you get down the road a few years from all that, and you just think back on it, and it's like, wow, you gotta take those moments when you can get them, because they're few and far between.
Sure, you're exactly right, Troy. I'd be licking my chops to get to work after those wins.
Oh yeah, you're just loving your job.
Oh yeah,
loving your job.
How was interacting? Would you interact with players and the staff during that time?
Oh yeah, a lot. You going to be more specific, or?
How was interacting with Marshall?
I knew you'd get that.
You knew it was coming.
Yeah. Can we talk about the players first?
Sure.
No. Greg Marshall was a highly competitive guy. He read the papers. He knew exactly what you'd written. He felt like if you weren't completely on his side, then he had something to say.
He'd let you know?
Yeah. Fortunately, I had a lot of years in this business at that time, so it was not difficult for me to resist that and push back when needed. Certainly, we had great respect for him as a basketball coach, and he was able to get as much out of players as any coach you can imagine. To think that Ron Baker came here without any other offers and became one of the greatest Shockers of all time, That's I think that Fred Van Vliet came here out of Rockford, Illinois, a 6-foot guy who couldn't jump or shoot, and to become what he became is almost unheard of. And if Fred happens to hear this, and I'm sure he will, just kidding about the shooting, Fred.
Yeah, for me, it's either him or X-Man. It's the greatest shocker of all time.
I'd say Stallworth, but I go back a lot. How old are you again?
28.
Oh my God, my shoes are 24. So yeah, your perspective is just as valuable as mine, but I have more years of perspective. So I'd put Stallworth 1, X 2. Fred would certainly be in the discussion at 3. I might still go Antoine Carr because but Fred is right there. He's certainly top 5.
Yeah, I don't think there's a wrong answer there.
Guys like Antoine coming out of, where'd he go? Heights?
He went to Heights, played with Valentine. Carr was a sophomore on that undefeated 77 team, and Valentine was a senior.
So you said Ricky Ross and Valentine had KU North Carolina. Did Antoine just not in
Antoine
like Aubrey
decided
Sherrod
very
not get the
early
looks?
he was going to go to Wichita State. Now, there wasn't really much of a recruiting battle because the Shockers locked him up. And they brought in Cliff Levingston at the same time out of San Diego. They also brought in Ozell Jones out of California, who was a 6'11" center. And I don't know how they got all those guys, but we can talk about that another time. But they put together...
Probably be legal now.
They put together a real juggernaut of a team. And there was really Antoine. There wasn't a whole lot of mystery as to where he was going, and the same with Aubrey Sherrod.
Were they capable though? Did they have the hype coming out of high school to be able to be recruited by KU's
absolutely. They're
North Carolina?
All-Americans, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And the same with Greg Dreiling at Capon, big 7'1" player who went to Wichita State. There was a little more of a recruiting battle for him. He didn't stay at Wichita State for long, though. He transferred to Kansas. And many Shocker fans have never forgiven him for that. But he made the right choice for him. He was a very good player at Kansas and had a decade-long run in the NBA.
Yeah. Thinking back and thinking of those teams with X and Antoine and Aubrey Sherrod and those guys, that had to have been so much fun. The arena had to have just been
And they were on probation
unbelievable.
for their best year, unfortunately. So they were ineligible for any kind of postseason play.
For what?
Violations.
What year was that? Do you remember?
That would have been 82, 83, I believe.
What was the Iowa year? Mike Kennedy was on and
that
said,
was 80, 81.
were those guys any of those guys on the team then?
Yes, Antoine was, but X hadn't gotten there yet, nor had Aubrey Sherrod. So that was Antoine, Cliff Levingston, Tony Martin, Randy Smithson, that crew, and they were that was an outstanding team that beat Kansas down in New Orleans in the Battle of New Orleans, and then lost to LSU for a chance to go to the Final Four. So that was certainly one of the historically great Shocker teams.
I wonder how they got Xavier McDaniel, because he's from the Carolinas. He's from the East Coast
they
somewhere.
had a coach. He's from Columbia, South Carolina, and they had a coach at the time who knew that area very well. And the Shockers had always had a pretty good history of recruiting in that area in South Carolina. They had a player earlier than that by the name of a little later than that actually by the name of John Smith, who was a big time recruit. It didn't really pan out for John, but they'd always had the Prelo twins came out of South Carolina. They were also a little bit later than X, but they had a little bit of a pipeline into South Carolina, and nobody could have predicted what Xavier McDaniel became.
Sure.
He was obviously a good recruit, but he didn't come to Wichita State with the kind of fanfare that you thought he would ever be someone who would lead the nation in both scoring and rebounding. But that's exactly what happened. So he's one of those guys, they really hit the
jackpot.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, the fact that he led the country in points and rebounds in the same season is remarkable.
Yeah.
Trying to think about anybody doing that today, and I can't.
Automatic number one pick in the NBA draft, doing
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah. And he had a very good NBA career.
Yeah.
I'd put his NBA career right there with any former Shocker. But nobody predicted that when he arrived at Wichita State.
Gotcha. That's just fascinating. You know, there are 2 games in this season. I like what I'm seeing so far. We've season tickets. I've been to both games. They have 12 new faces. They've got 3 guards: Kenyon Giles, Dre Kendall, the transfer out of Barton, and Michael Gray. All 3 of them can score it, and they can handle the ball, which is great to see.
You could score against Prairie View. Okay?
Maybe.
You could score against Prairie View. Now let's see what they do.
You ever seen him shoot a basketball?
No, I'd still say he could probably score against Prairie View.
But I'm also high on the redshirt freshman T.J. Williams out of Heights.
Yes.
He has a motor that reminds me of Rashard Kelly. He goes after every loose ball and contests every rebound offensively and defensively. And his offensive ability is just going to continue to get more polished, and he's going to be a great player at
Well, there's
Wichita
certainly
State.
more to hope about for this team than there has been in a while. I want to see how they fare against some of the tougher teams coming up on their schedule. I want to see how they fare when they go out on the road and play.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, there's reason to be hopeful.
Right. And I like what I'm seeing with the university, too. This is the cheapest tickets in 15 years. And for the first time since they've started selling alcohol, I saw Saturday night, they had $2 beers at the stadium. So I love what the university's trying to do to bring people back into the arena.
Have you had a drinking problem for long?
$2 beers. That'll get most.
Yeah. If they start losing, I might.
They had to do something to get the fans back because
Yes.
they were in danger of losing their fan base. Crowds have been pretty dismal the last couple of years. So the best thing they can do is to win, obviously. But then you got to do other things to get people in the door until you're sure you're going to win. Let me tell you something. I will tell you this for 100% sure. If they start winning big, those ticket prices are going to go right back up.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So don't get they don't want you to get too used to them. They want to be able to say, hey, now we've got a product.
Sure.
But in this day and age of NIL and transfer portal, I don't know what to expect from year to year.
Sure.
It's taken away. You know, I was thinking about you spoke about the Kansas Sports Hall of Fame earlier. Will we see any athletes at the Kansas schools go into the Kansas Sports Hall of Fame in the future, or how will that be diminished? Because to me, that's about the body of work that you've accumulated when you were at KU, K-State, Wichita State, Pittsburgh State, wherever. If you're just there 1 year, regardless of how successful that year was, are you gonna get enough attention to be a Kansas Sports Hall of Famer? I think about things like that because I value the players, the athletes who spend time at our schools, and we get to know them and we count on them, and they build a fan base just as much as the team. I mean, we talked about Ron Baker and Fred VanVleet. They'll be forever tied together in Shocker history. If there had been the NIL and transfer portal to this degree when they played, we would not have had those people for 4 years.
Right.
No, you're absolutely right. It's definitely changed things, and that's what made college sports so great. You know, watching guys like Ron Baker come in as a walk-on and end up being one of the greatest shooting guards Wichita State's ever had. And like you said about VanVleet, coming off the bench and became one of the greatest Shockers.
Well, look at
two-time conference player of the
look
year.
at Dylan Edwards and look at Avery Johnson. Dylan Edwards has already announced he's going to transfer. How many times is that?
Right.
Avery Johnson hears it every week. You got to get out of there. You got to get out of there. It almost seems like a fait accompli that after this season's over, Avery Johnson's going to leave Kansas State. Where's he going to go? Nobody knows. I can't say that he's leaving Kansas State for sure, obviously, but it sure feels like that's the direction things are headed. And now we have to put up with all that noise when something's not going well. We have to hear people talk about, well, he needs to go somewhere, instead of digging in your heels and making things better where you are. That stuff bothers me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is so much, just so much different. So much, because like what you said with the Van Vliet Baker stuff, that wouldn't have happened. It just would not have happened. And think of how many Van Vliet and Baker's stories are in other schools that they have, and those probably wouldn't have happened unless you
would have never known what you missed because we couldn't predict the future for them.
Right.
But here they are, both 4-year players, both with resumes that. I mean, we talked about the Final Four year. They had a better team the next year when they were 35-0.
Right. Yes, they did.
And lost to Kentucky. That was a better team.
Yep.
We won't get the love that the Final Four team gets, but that team was incredible. And that game against Kentucky that they lost in St. Louis was one of the best college games I've ever seen.
It was. We were in the building for that one. That was probably the worst loss I've ever handled.
Yeah.
And my prime fandom just crushed.
Yeah. Do you think that was the best Wichita State team of all time?
You could certainly make a case, yes. I think the 80-81 team would get some accolades. I think the 63-64 Shocker team that lost to Kansas State in the regional final, that team had a chance to go to the Final Four. That was a heartbreaking loss for me because I was a kid, and to see them lose that game to K-State, they were a better team than K-State.
Who'd K-State have?
They had Willie Morrell was their star player, and he was good. He was matched up against Dave Stallworth, and it was, as I recall, as being a 9-year-old kid, it was an incredible battle. But I think those teams would certainly be in the mix as the greatest Shocker. And the 2 Final Four teams would also be in the mix as the greatest Shocker teams, but I don't think either was.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree with you on the team that our generation, that team. I think that the 35-0 team was better.
You could even say the 15 team may have been better than the Final Four team too. The one that hosted game day had Northern Iowa here. That team was great.
Mm-hmm.
That Final Four team, they spun their tire. They lost to Evansville twice that year.
Yeah.
The 14 team was definitely better, and the 15 team might have been too.
Yeah. The advantage that the 13 team had was that it got hot at the right time.
Yes.
Bingo.
And they really took off when they beat Gonzaga, the number 1 seed.
Mm-hmm.
And they did it in an amazing way. And that really put the Shockers on the map. And then suddenly everybody's wanting to see, well, who are these guys? I want to see what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And they really kind of took the country by storm that year.
They did.
Such fun times, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm bullish. I'm bullish on this year's team. I'm bullish on Koch Arena getting back to the environment that it once was. I think the university's trying.
There's at least hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, just, have fun. It hadn't been a lot of fun the last couple years. So we'll see. They're 2-0, and they've got some important games coming up.
Yeah, they do. They do. I wanted to jump to League 42. It's really admirable for you to give back and help provide an outlet for kids to be able to play. What was the reasoning to start that for you?
Well, it goes back a lot of years. So I'm a baseball guy. I mean, I'm a sports guy, but baseball's my foundation. I get up every morning and I record a show called Hot Stove on the MLB Network.
Mm-hmm.
And I watch it pretty much every day. My car radio is set to the MLB Network. The older I've gotten, the more I've delved into baseball. I've adored the sport since I was a kid. My dad was a St. Louis Cardinals fan and listened to their games on the radio religiously, and that got passed down to me. And I've been a Cardinals fan since 1963. So baseball has always been my thing. And then as I got older, I coached my son playing youth baseball. And we played and traveled all over. That was one of those teams that was really good. And I noticed that there weren't a lot of African Americans that we ever saw playing baseball. There weren't a lot of Hispanic Latino kids either that we saw playing baseball. And that always stuck in my brain, and I told coworkers frequently that somebody needed to do something about it here in Wichita. Start a league that specialized in making it affordable and putting the fields at a place where logistically these kids could get to easily. And I just kept talking about it. I talked about it on radio. I talked about it. Boy, I sounded good when I talked about it. It was really impressive. You should have heard me. But really, all I did was talk. And after one of our radio shows one day, somebody got a hold of me and said, "It's great that you talk about this, but we'd really love for you to try to do something." And so I called, I don't know the time frame, but eventually I got on Facebook in the year 2013 and I said, "I want to hold a meeting and talk about this idea I have about a youth baseball league that caters to young kids of color. And does anybody want to meet me at Side Pockets tomorrow night at 6 o'clock?" And so I show up at Side Pockets and four other guys are there for that express purpose of meeting about this idea I had. And I leave there thinking, well, yeah, we'll see. Well, I don't know if that's really enough support. So I called for another meeting a week later, and 8 or 9 or 10 showed up. And then as each meeting happened, more people started showing up. And people from different careers and occupations and walks of life. An attorney started showing up. An accountant started showing up. Not that I like accountants, but they started.
Me neither.
They started showing up. That's an inside joke.
I know. Thank you.
So different people with different abilities started to show an interest. And we were able to put it all together and get out and pound the pavement. This first meeting happened on July 15th of 2013. By 2014, the spring, we were able to put a league together at McAdams Park with just over 200 kids on 16 teams in 4 age groups. So we made all that happen in the course of 8 months. And I think back on that today, and I'm blown away by the people who chipped in and decided that this idea I had was worth pursuing. Because, you have a lot of ideas, but you don't know. I think that's what held me back, the fear of not being able to do it. Mm-hmm. But we were able to do it. And here we are entering our 13th year. We have 630 kids, which is our limit.
Wow.
Yeah. That's our limit. We don't have any capacity to grow beyond that because of fields and coaches. Mm-hmm. But we'll have 47 teams in 2026 at McAdams Park, which is the baseball part of that has been completely renovated. We've added a 4th field to the mix. We're getting ready to put turf on one of our existing fields this off season, which will give us 3 turf fields.
Wow.
1 still dirt. We have a facility of our own, not the Carl Brewer, that's what's being renovated at McAdams. The Leslie Rudd Learning Center is our building at 1212 East 17th Street. We have had that building now for almost 3 years. We have our offices. We've gone into education. We have a program called Bright Lights, which is an after-school tutoring program for literacy and math. We have 3 other programs. One's called the Passion Project, where we bring in speakers to talk to our kids and families about the importance of passion. We have a Bats and Badges program, which is designed to enhance relationships between young kids and law enforcement. And we have a financial literacy class that's called Full Count. So we've grown to that degree, and it's just been the experience of my lifetime, really.
That is incredible work.
It really is.
That's everything you'd want. What are the age groups on the baseball players?
We have ages 5 through 14, so we have 5 different age groups, starting with T-ball, coach pitch, and then 3 levels of kid pitch, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13, 14.
Is it all kind of word of mouth at this point, or how does League 42 advertise itself to the groups that you want?
Yeah,
Being
well,
part of?
it was really difficult at the outset. Now we have to bar the door because many people now know about League 42. Some of that's for the wrong reasons, because I'm sure you know about the statue theft
Right.
of last year, January of 2024, that really adversely affected us, but then became a huge there became a huge silver lining in all of that, because people across the country took notice, and we were able to raise a lot of money. We would never want to go through the emotional turmoil of something like that, but the response of this community, and really the American community, Major League Baseball stepped in and contributed new lights, and they paid for the replacement of the statue. So now, when we go about registration, which we just completed, but we started it in September, we had 3 registration days on Saturdays, 1 in September, 2 in October. They last 4 hours each. At the end of those 3 registration days, 12 hours total, we had reached more than 600 kids who registered for the league. There's a big need. Parents want their kids to be active. We only charge $30 per child or family of siblings to play in this league. We provide the uniforms. We provide a lot of the equipment. All of our programming, our educational programming, is at no cost. We give kids a lot of stuff to do for very little money. And that's why we're so popular. That, and we do our very best to run a high-quality league.
How do you get your coaches and umpires?
I beg.
Really?
Umpires we pay. So that's not usually a problem. Coaches, we depend on volunteers. And a lot of them are parents, but a lot of them aren't. And they just want to come and help out League 42. They want the experience of helping children. It's a great way to give back. There's a lot of great ways to give back in this community and really everywhere. I'd put League 42 in that very high on that list, because you really get an opportunity to make a difference in the life of a child. And what better opportunity is there, really? I know it makes me extremely proud to have this chance to help children.
What do you think is next for League 42? Like, when you look 5 years down the road, what are some things you want done or accomplished in League 42?
I think we'll probably end up at some point expanding our Bright Lights program to where we don't just have one classroom. We could potentially have more than that. We could build another facility to house that. I think the growth is more so in the education part of this than it is the baseball part of it, because it's just so hard. At McAdams, we've pretty much run out of real estate for fields, and finding volunteer coaches is for 47 teams, and you want at least 3 coaches, and we really prefer 4. So that gets 170 to 190 coaches. You don't just snap your fingers and find that many. So it's really a lot of work. So I would say that in the future, the opportunity I see for growth is more on the education side, the literacy side especially. We got a lot of people trying to help kids read. And I don't remember that being an issue when I was a kid. I don't know if you guys felt like it was when you were kids, but it's certainly an issue today. And we want to make sure that as many kids as we can reach who have difficulty reading, we want to do whatever we can to help them.
Yeah, that is so brilliant. And teaching all of that and then adding financial literacy on top is just, man, that's a fantastic program you got.
Yeah, and I didn't see it coming. Obviously, this is not even when I thought about, well, we need to help kids of color play baseball. This vision took time to develop. It started with baseball, and then I became aware that for us to have the kind of growth and the appeal to donors that we need to have, that we needed to expand this into education. We saw a plot of land just across the street from us on 17th Street where an old auto repair garage was. It was just a junky area with rusted out vehicles, and we decided that we need to find out who owns that land, and we need to get that land, because that needs to be where our offices have to be. We have a 9,000 square foot indoor baseball training area.
Wow.
We have one classroom, and I think we're going to need more than that in the fairly near future. So we convinced a Wichita entrepreneur by the name of Dave Murphin to buy that land for us. We cleared out that land. We built this facility for $1.8 million, which we were able to raise through a major fundraising campaign. And Dave eventually deeded that land over to us, so it's completely ours now.
Wow.
That's really great, Bob. That's a great story, and it's really meaningful work. Were you surprised by the national attention and outpouring of support after the Jackie statue got stolen?
I went through so many emotions in that time, and being a media member and somebody who knew a story when you saw one. Mm-hmm. One of the reactions to that, I told our administrative assistant at the time, after I got through the temptation to quit and throw my hands up and say, I can't do this, it's too hard. I told her that this is going to be a national story because of Jackie Robinson, because it's a statue honoring him. People are going to be outraged about this. This is an American icon. Forget about the baseball, the civil rights, and everything this man did in the short course of his life, which was only 53 years. We are, when we decided to name League 42, it was obvious that was a great name, but it also put a big burden on us to live up to the name of Jackie Robinson. You don't just name your League 42 and say, oh, there it is. Mm-hmm. Now we can let's go on and run a typical youth sports league. No, because Jackie Robinson stood for so much. So besides the baseball and all the stuff we do, we really stress sportsmanship. We don't want yelling at officials or players or coaches or other fans. We don't tolerate it. It does not fit with what Jackie Robinson would have wanted. I think we can rest assured that if Jackie Robinson had started a youth baseball league, he would want decorum, which he rarely got to experience when he played. But he certainly deserved that kind of decorum. So really, this whole league is in honor of him. I've learned so much about Jackie Robinson since we started League 42, and I knew some, mm-hmm. but I didn't know the complete story. And I'm just, it's really an honor to be the executive director of an organization that pays homage to him.
I think it's very important that you didn't quit after that got stolen. It's very important.
Yeah, I'm a very emotional guy, and so my first reaction was, because this is a hard job. Mm-hmm. I was a sports writer for a long, long time and a journalist. And not that that didn't have its challenges, but running a nonprofit is like nothing else I could have ever dreamed of, and especially this kind of nonprofit. So the reaction was we worked so hard to get that statue and overcame so much. And for it to just be cut down and taken off above his shoe tops and to have video footage of it happening, and it just made me sick. But I didn't. That lasted for maybe an hour or two, and then I was like, okay, we gotta recoup this. I called the widow of the guy who did the sculpture, who I happened to grow up with in Dewbey, Kansas, one of my best friends, John Parsons, and she said that the mold of the statue still existed, that we could most likely get the same statue back. So when I heard that, I felt a sense of relief, because this is a guy that was very close to me that had done this statue. So that only added to my pain.
It's great to not give that scumbag the satisfaction.
Can you say that on a podcast?
That and worse.
I guess so. Wow, had I known that, I would have been.
Oh, anything goes.
There you go.
Anything goes. No, it's great. It's great how you rebounded, and the outpouring of support around the country was really remarkable.
Well, there's an entire documentary on the subject. It's called More Like Jackie, and it was done by Travis Hying and Jamie Green from the Wichita Eagle, two people I worked with there for a long time. And they got a hold of this story from the outset, and they put out this documentary earlier this year, last winter. And it's available on YouTube, and I would encourage you guys and whoever else is listening to the podcast to look that up. It's really, really well done, about an hour long, and it goes through the whole story. And it's very emotional, but it's worth your time.
Oh, I'm sure.
And is there a new Jackie Robinson statue standing today?
We put that up last August, and Major League Baseball was on hand for that. Some of their front office people were here.
How neat.
So was CC Sabathia.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And Jeremy Guthrie and Dylan Betances. And but CC Sabathia obviously just went into the Baseball Hall of Fame. So we were honored to have him here for that ceremony. And the new statue is up, and we're very happy about that.
That's fantastic.
That is great. I have immense respect for what you've done with League 42 and the overall of your career. I have a lot of respect for that.
I appreciate that. It's been a long career, that's for sure. You know, it started when I was 16 years old, working at paper in Dewbey, where I grew up, and then here in Wichita, and newspapers and radio, and your podcast, which is certainly at the top of the list.
Ranks
Damn
high.
straight.
Ranks high, doesn't it? Troy, you got anything?
I don't.
Bob, you got anything for us?
No, you had mentioned you mentioned a top 10 list, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And
Right here.
I love lists, and I don't know when this list was done, but
Look at the text I sent you, Blake. You can probably still access it even if there's a paywall. Yeah. Read that off, Jack.
So this was your list.
It was definitely after Connor and Parrott. I mean, it's relatively recent.
Relatively recent. Top 10 City League basketball players. Maybe since you've been watching the history of the City League.
Yeah.
So from 10 to 1.
Some of these are old school.
Yeah.
I might want to revise a couple, but that's a pretty.
Can't now.
Can. It's out there.
Yeah.
Randy Canfield from Southeast.
He was from the 60s. He was a giant. We thought he was a giant. He was probably 6'9", but he was huge. Maybe he was 6'11", and he went on to play at Kansas. And very good player. Dominated the City League in those days. Taj Gray, of course.
Number 9.
Went to play at Oklahoma after some time at Redlands Community College with Steve Eck, and fantastic player in the Big 12. Adrian Griffin, who played at East High School, collegiately went to Seton Hall of all places. Was a really good player there, spent quite a bit of time in the NBA, and was most recently a coach in the NBA. He was actually the head coach
of the Bucks.
of the Milwaukee Bucks, and they let him go.
Right.
When I didn't quite understand that. We know Connor and Aubrey Sherrod we talked about earlier, and the rest of them are pretty much household names in Wichita.
Yep. Connor at 7, Aubrey Sherrod at 6, Greg Dreiling at 5, Antoine Carr at 4, Perry at 3, man, Heights, Darnell Valentine
look at all the Heights.
at number 2, and then Ricky Ross, number 1.
Yeah, as I look at that, probably the most difficult one was Perry and Antoine.
I was going to ask you, how'd you decide
Well, the
between those
reason
two?
here's why. And if Antoine, if you're watching this, which I know you are,
Thank you, Bob.
yes. I know you're going to maybe bristle at this, but Perry won 4 state championships. Antoine did, other than the time he was a sophomore at Heights, he did not win any more. So his junior and senior year at Heights, he was not a state champion. Perry Ellis, again, won every year he was in high school. And he was the best player on all of those teams, including being a freshman. So I think that gave him the edge.
Who are your on the bubble guys? Who would you say, like, off the top of your head would be like 11 or 12 or somebody close?
Well, you could just look at all the players Steve Eck had at South. Johnny Murdoch, Steve Woodbury, Val Barnes, those folks who were phenomenal City League basketball players. You could go back into the 60s still, and Kelly Pete and Jamie Thompson, who were 2 of the greatest shockers of all time, also played at East High in the 60s. So there's a bunch of people, a bunch of guys who would just be on the cusp of that list.
That's an amazing list for a city like Wichita.
Well, 6 of the 10 were McDonald's All-Americans, so yeah, that's a pretty good run.
Yeah.
Not bad. I mean, 6 of the 10? Wow.
Ross, Valentine, Ellis, Carr, Dreiling, and Sherrod.
Wow.
And Frank Camp was just
Yeah.
off the radar on that.
Amazing that Frank Camp wasn't, with how just unbelievable he was.
This didn't have the postseason success. He played in 1 state tournament, which ultimately that's part of how you're judged. He just didn't have the firepower behind him at North that a lot of these other guys did.
To put in perspective how good Connor Frankamp was, he's probably what, 5'10", 5'11"? And
He would argue with that, but yeah, that's probably close.
he committed to KU as a sophomore in high school. That's how good of a player he was. Mm-hmm. Undersized, and he already got offered by KU early in high school.
Well, his basketball instincts were off the chart. He could shoot it like arguably the greatest shooter we've ever seen come through here.
Right.
He was a fantastic passer. A little small to be a defender, a top-flight defender, but he worked at it. But it was fun to watch him play, for sure.
It really was. He was,
Yeah.
every time we're Bishop Carroll guys, every time he was playing Carroll, you got to go see it.
Oh, yeah.
I can't believe no Bishop Carroll players are on that list. It's really, what a snub.
Hey, who do you think is the best? Now, the bar's not high. Who do you think's the best Bishop Carroll basketball player?
Oh, my goodness.
Can you even name one?
I know they had some good years in the mid-teens.
I mean, you could say Blake Bell, but that's kind of a cop-out.
Yeah, I wouldn't say Blake Bell. I'm sure they don't.
It
ask
might
me.
be Blake Bell.
No, I feel like I'm missing somebody. You remember they had some really good teams fairly recently, but I can't think of the names because I think I was already gone from the Eagle at that time. But they had some pretty good players, and now you've got Dale Faber back there coaching.
Yeah.
So they might make another run. I'm sorry I don't have an answer for that. That
No.
was a long-winded way to say, hell if I know who Bishop Carroll.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not a lot we hold our hats on when it comes to basketball.
Now, football, that's a different story.
I'll give it to Connor Evans, friend of the program. Good player.
There
Carroll.
you go.
Yeah.
Who?
Connor.
Oh.
He played when I was there. He was our best player.
Well, there
And
you go.
He's been on the show, so I figured I'd
No,
give him his
there
flowers.
actually have been a couple, and I wish I had access to that. I don't know that Bishop Carroll's ever had an all-state player. I'm not saying they haven't, but I'm not sure. But I know they've had several all-city players,
Yeah.
and that's a pretty good honor. So,
Joe could have been
Brown?
Joe Brown.
yeah, I
You remember
remember that
him?
name.
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of these guys are football players that are playing basketball. Like, thanks to Alan Shuckman, they had quite the run. But yeah, the Carroll.
Now you've
basketball
made
is-
me curious, so I'm going to go home and look up the
Texas.
all-city list.
Text us a top 10 Bishop Carroll list.
There you go. The problem with that is
It won't take you too long.
We used to keep impeccable records on high school sports at the Eagle, and then the paper and all papers started downsizing, and so much of that stuff has been lost. And they stopped doing all city teams. I think it's still picked by the league, but the Wichita Eagle doesn't do all city teams anymore. They do all metro teams. And to me, the all city team was that was the one. But now, we've seen suburban schools start to take over,
Right.
and it's not like it was.
Well, sir, this was a real treat for us.
Well, I appreciate that. I hope you're being honest.
Oh, yeah.
Can we hook you up to a lie detector?
Yeah, you certainly can.
It was. This was awesome.
You certainly
was.
can. Well, any closing remarks for us?
I just appreciate the opportunity. I love to talk about the old days of the City League and certainly the Shockers. So you hit me in my wheelhouse. That's where I'm the best. And then to give me the opportunity to tell you and others about League 42 is always appreciated.
Awesome, sir. Well, we appreciate you coming on. It's been great following your career, and hopefully the Shockers can keep it rolling.
So who's your next podcast guest?
We've got Commissioner. We've had a few county commissioners on. We've got Commissioner Ryan Beatty coming on.
Oh, wow.
And then we have two brothers that were a couple years younger than me at Bishop Carroll that are endurance athletes, real
Okay.
distance runners. So we're going to talk to them. So that's kind of what we've got on deck.
All right. Good deal. Well, congratulations on doing this, and keep it up.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. All righty, guys. Thanks.